Hello everybody and welcome to this week's reflection. Thank you for your feedback from last week. It's been a bit of a daunting task, but I appreciate what you've offered, and so we're back. And a big shout out to my mate Dave Gazard, whose idea I stole for the other video about making the cross. Last weekend, having a cup of tea, a few quiet moments, I became aware of a feeling within me that I'd been wrestling with and hadn't quite named, and it was the feeling of grief. As I started to share with friends and other people, the idea that this personal and collective grief about the loss of normalcy, the fear of financial pressure, the loss of connection with our community, whatever that may be for us, was starting to make a huge impact in our world. The Harvard Business Review suggested that if we can name it, perhaps we can manage it. They got in touch with a man called David Kessler, who co-wrote a book with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross called On Grief and Grieving. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in the 70s identified 5 stages of grief. And I want to read you just a small passage that David spoke of as the Harvard Business Review interviewed him. It reads like this: "The stages of grief are not linear. It's not a map, but provides some scaffolding for this unknown world. There's denial, the first stage, which we say a lot early on, this virus won't affect us. There's anger, the second stage. You're making me stay home and taking away my activities. There's bargaining in the third stage. Okay, if I socially distance for 2 weeks, everything will be better, right? There's sadness in the fourth stage. I don't know when this will end. And finally, there's acceptance. This is happening. I have to figure out how to proceed." Acceptance, as you can imagine, is where the power lies. We find control in acceptance. I can wash my hands. I can keep a safe distance. I can learn how to work through the mediums that we have by technology. David Kessler names a 6th stage, which is meaning. A wise person said to me many years ago, as I was moving from, I think, England to Australia, or maybe even within Australia, but they said, "Honour your grief." These 3 words have had a profound impact on me over the last 20 years. This weekend, our Passion reading is chapters 26 and 27 of Matthew's Gospel. And it starts with Jesus saying, "The Son of Man must be handed over to be crucified." The Passion narrative is full of grief. Judas's betrayal, the disciples at the Passover meal in Jerusalem saying, "Surely not I, Lord. We'll be with you to the end." And yet they flee moments later. Even in the garden where Jesus is praying, the Garden of Gethsemane, the disciples fall asleep. And a wise elder some years ago suggested that that was because of grief, potentially. Religious leaders act out of fear, not compassion. And even Pilate, Caesar's representative on earth, is impotent in the face of genuine power. Simon of Cyrene, a bypasser, suddenly ends up walking with a cross through Jerusalem, getting caught up in the drama of death, violence, and of course resurrection next weekend. Jesus' grief is palpable on the cross. Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? Even the earth shook with grief. Earthquake, rocks splitting, tombs opening. And the most faithful of all faithful, the women who followed Jesus, who remained while many fled. Honouring our grief. I invite you this Passion Sunday to bring before God your grief. All of it, some of it, and let the Spirit breathe upon it as we honour it.